We're here to bring real solutions to real problems affecting real people today. With your support, you can join us in becoming part of the solution and a part of this movement.
So this video has two clips. This is going to be the first clip. The second I recorded the other day. You'll hear me talking about a gentleman who pretty much lost everything through the process of becoming disabled and being fixed in the hospital and sent home and then receiving an inadequate wheelchair. And I was born with my disability, and I find things a lot easier than those who gain it midlife. I never had anything to lose. In fact, the reason I go forth so much is because my back's to the wall. I'm trying to stay alive and do things. And people who gain disability, they end up in that situation too. This gentleman that I'm not going to talk about in terms of his name, he lives in a state, several states away from me. And after meeting him online through social media and discussing his issues, I talked to my outreach director at the foundation, who has a list of support services across the country, and they put together a list which I sent to this gentleman the very same night of which that I sent that list of resources. I saw him post a vaguely worded or a veiled threat of suicide. And so I'm thinking to myself, I just sent him that email, and so I have the opportunity to call him and see if he got that email. Maybe talking about the email will make him feel better. Maybe he'll have the opportunity to vent his issues and just feel better, right? So I made that call, and he did vent. It did not go the way that I wanted it to go. It did not go the best way it could have on the phone call. And he very directly threatened suicide to me on the phone and gave a time limit of 30 minutes. What am I supposed to do in that situation, right? I can't go over to his house. I don't know anybody that lives near him. How can I address this? Well, I did know where he lived, and I did have his phone number. And so I did call his local sheriff for a wellness check. And a couple of days later, in a comment thread on one of his posts, he stated that I was one of his true friends. I want you to think about that, right? When people become disabled, it's very common for their friends and their family to exit their lives. They can't handle the situation. They don't know what to do. They don't have the stomach for it. I understand that. But when you think about the person who's really affected, right? This person who became paralyzed and is in an inadequate wheelchair, well, that means he loses any support system that he would have initially thought that he would have. And that's why he only has one trustworthy caregiver, which is someone with a different kind of disability. And the night that he was threatening suicide, that caregiver couldn't handle the situation and walked away. And the guy thought he was abandoned, right? And he's got a colostomy bag and a urinal bag, and he can't change those himself because he's in an inadequate wheelchair. And there's a good chance that he needs some home modifications for accessibility too. I think it's been 6 or 7 years since he got out of the hospital, and he doesn't have an appropriate wheelchair, and I think it's likely that he lacks some accessibility in his own home, wherever he's living now. And he stated that the insurance spent millions of dollars to put him back together and send him home. But here he is, right, that night, suffering, really, truly suffering, in his own filth, no less. A hard-working man who built a business is now left alone without dignity. How do we tolerate this as a society with the resources to do so much better? How is it that we are tolerating this? The man had inherent value. He owned and ran a company that, if he had the right resources for equipment and accessibility, he could still run. Why are we doing this to people? You know, our systems, they drop the ball. They drop the ball as soon as that profit margin is gone. As soon as we can't be a profitable means for companies that are often in bed with these, quote, healthcare systems, end quote. How is it that the society, the United States of America, is tolerating this? I don't understand it. But I'm not tolerating it, and that's kind of why I started this foundation. You know, in 2014, I reapplied for the same wheelchair that I had several times over. And it was still on the market. And I got denied. I got told to choose from a range of wheelchairs that with my condition would lead to injury and going to the bed. If you don't know what the term going to the bed means, it's a long, slow death. Let's be honest about this. It's a long, slow death. For someone who could still have plenty of value to society, to their neighbors, their loved ones. But instead, in cases like this gentleman or myself, we're left without what we need to be that whole person, to be that person that has a benefit to society, to be what we want to be, right? And I think it's absolutely ridiculous that our systems, which are tax funded, are dropping the ball at that point and forcing human suffering. And I'm here to work against that force. I'm here to run this organization, find the engineers, to lead the way to showing our society that there is a cost benefit to doing it ourselves. It costs less, it happens faster, without having to have approval through the healthcare systems or the welfare systems. It allows us to be a benefit to society instead of the burden as so many tend to see us. This gentleman deserves all the help in the world, and I'm going to do everything I can to help him. But watch this next clip coming up right after this. It's the same video. And ask yourself why this happened. Why does this have to be? Because it doesn't have to be. And it shouldn't happen. Hello folks, Thomas Daniel Quiter here, President and founder of the Mobility Independence Foundation. I am taking a walk a couple miles outside of town right now. I got here in our flagship prototype of the Endurance Powered Chair, and it is July 3rd, 2025, and it is also Disability Pride Month. A lot of us have our own ideas of what disability pride means or is, and I can't speak for anyone else, but I'll speak for my own. I have pride in surviving all of the medical life expectancies. I have pride in obtaining a wheelchair that I needed, even though the services that be would not provide it. I have pride in the fact that I have been able to travel the country with the Mobility Independence Foundation to tackle this problem of equipment that we have. And I want to talk about this for a minute because I'm taking a walk to clear my head. With what I do, I have the misfortune, I suppose, of bearing witness to some of the worst, needless, unnecessary human suffering in this country, the United States of America. I talked to a gentleman on the phone who's having a problem. I got his full story, and I'm going to try to sum it up for you. He had a accident on the road and became paralyzed. He was all banged up and broken, and they put him back together, and he's alive, right? Hallelujah. And that's great. I'm sure he's grateful to be alive, but here's the thing. He was a business owner. He built that business. He had employees. He had a home that he owned. And in order to receive services from the government to stay alive, because the price is so great, unnecessarily so great, he had to divest. And that's a roundabout way of saying get rid of everything he got. He no longer has his home. He no longer has his business. Relationships with family, friends, and former employees are extremely strained. And they just gave him a wheelchair that doesn't fit. He can't use it. He should be alive. He should still have his property. Right? In this country, tomorrow's Independence Day. We celebrate our rights to life and property as well as others. We do not celebrate having to choose between the right of property and the right to live. And he's in a situation that I've spent most of my life in. The right to things versus the right to live. In a few years, he's the kind of person that we're going to be able to address very directly. He will not have to wait for approval. He will not have to wait to be refitted over and over again, right? He will not have to wait 5 months for repairs or 1 to 3 years for a pre-made piece of equipment that's sitting in a warehouse. Now, when our initiative truly takes hold, and it's coming, we can address that as a society. And we don't need bureaucrats to tell us we're disabled. We don't need bureaucrats to tell us what we need to live our lives. And the reality is, all of the technology we need to do so much better than these systems do already exists. That's why open hardware. That's why the Mobility Independence Foundation. That's what I'm here for. That's why I did 10 months on the road with 12 broken bones. Because I believe in this. And I believe that the suffering that I see in situations like this gentleman is so unnecessary and so avoidable. All we have to do is start doing it for ourselves. And the prototype that I'm in right now, we discovered last year that a 16-year-old kid who's into robotics, if he had all the parts in front of him, could assemble it in 3 weeks. And yet we are waiting 1 to 3 years to receive something through the system in terms of a power chair. And an average of 5 months for a repair. That could be a very simple repair. That could be something that takes a screwdriver, but we're restricted from repairing it ourselves. We're restricted from using our communities. And when you have a disability, when you're in a spot, you know, what you need is your community. Your community will actually care about you. I appreciate the healthcare system for what it is and can do, but let's face it, it's a system. And we design systems to remove caring. And by removing caring, we ensure there's no waste. However, why do we call it a health care system when systems cannot care? All right, folks. Disability Pride Month. I pride myself in taking control of my own situation, keeping myself alive, finding my own equipment that I needed when the systems would not provide. I pride myself in doing better for me and my situation than the entire United States government. The MIF.org, THEMIF.org. Please go there. Please sign up to donate a little bit monthly. It goes a long way.